Well, hello, everybody. It's Pastor Brent here again on Wednesday, March the 25th. I trust that you're doing well and that the Lord is meeting you at your place of need these days. For our devotions, we're going to be going into the book of Proverbs, chapter 3 again, which is where we've been spending a lot of our time recently. And the verses that we're going to be looking at specifically address the whole area of neighborliness and how we should be living among the people with whom we share community. And so we're going to start in verse 27, which has become a bit of a life verse for me personally in recent years. And we're going to be reading through to the end of verse 27. And so, by the way, this is Solomon writing here, and he frames this whole passage in terms of a list. It's a list of prohibitions, really. It's don't do this, and don't do this, and don't do this, and don't do this. And as he goes through this list, you're going to find that it's a bit of an escalating list as well. It just demonstrates that how when we don't obey God in some of the most basic instruction about how we should live with one another, that it can then escalate, our attitude can escalate into another place of resentment or maybe animosity or sometimes other things that are even worse. And so, again, we're going to be looking at verse 27 to begin with, and this is the part that I really appreciate personally. He says this, he says, "Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them." That's a great verse for all of us who are living in these very different days right now. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them. Then verse 28, "If you can help your neighbor now, don't say, 'Come back tomorrow and I'll help you.'" Do you see how it's starting to escalate a little bit? Solomon's anticipating that if we have a negative response in one area, we're going to continue to be negative in the future. So he says that. And then he takes it a step further. "Don't plot harm against your neighbor, for those who live nearby trust you." Like, we weren't even talking about harming our neighbors, but all of a sudden Solomon goes there. And then, "Don't pick a fight without reason when no one has done you any harm." And then finally, "Don't envy violent people or copy their ways. Such wicked people are detestable to the Lord, but," and he ends this way, "he offers his friendship to the godly." And as I said, I think this is just really kind of a sobering call to conscientious living among people within our personal reach. And it also shows how bad it can get sometimes when our attitudes toward other people or people's attitudes toward other people are wrong. You know, I mentioned at the outset that this is March the 25th. And on March the 25th, 1807, it was that date in history when the British Parliament passed a bill that abolished slavery and penalized slave traders throughout the British Empire. And when we think about that, or when I think about that, I think 1807 seems like a long, long time ago, but it really wasn't. We're really just talking about being a few generations removed. And it's hard for us to imagine sometimes, or hard for me to imagine certainly, that it took an act of Parliament to actually make that happen in our world. And sometimes when I think about that as well, it's a reminder that to me that as human beings, our choices, we have a capability of making choices that add dignity to people's lives or to take that dignity away. And it can escalate, again, it can escalate in both directions. But it starts small. We need to start small. And as I think, even as I think about some of the good stories that are coming out of the COVID crisis, I think of little things like the family that I heard about that packaged up a number of necessity items and left them out on their step for those who maybe needed it. Or I heard about a woman who offered to deliver items to people who couldn't get them on their own because she traveled to town regularly anyway. Or about the man who called a family who were returning to the country after being away and came back into this world with very different rules and called them just to see that they made it home okay and to tell them that he was praying for them while they were gone. Or about the woman who daily calls on a local senior just to interrupt the loneliness that can come with that kind of solitary living. You know, I hear of all of those good things. I'm encouraged that God is still at work among us. And that people are actually, my prayer really is that people are discovering God's own friendship with the godly as they serve their fellow people in uncertain times. When I hear of all those things, that's one of the things that I'm thinking about. And so God bless you today, everybody. Find a way to bless your neighbors. Be creative in that. And we'll see you all tomorrow. God bless.